Oh, we are live.
We are live now?
All right, great. Thanks, Cécile. Hello and good afternoon. Thank you for spending your time with us on this Saturday afternoon. My name is Bianca Levan, and I'm a San Francisco artist. And sorry, I'm very nervous. I'm also an artist volunteer and chair of the Artist Committee for Kids&Art. The mission of Kids&Art is to improve the quality of pediatric cancer care and focus on the whole child in treatment by including healing through arts in their protocol. Before COVID, we hosted weekly art workshops at Stanford Children's Hospital and UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital, where we created art with patients, siblings, caregivers, and hospital staff, in waiting rooms, infusion rooms, and as needed by the bedside. We also had a monthly destination workshop program where our families came and created with us at fun creative venues like Picard, Google, the De Young Museum, and the like. Our volunteer artists are an essential part of our organization, from developing and leading art projects to creating side-by-side with a child. These artists facilitate the child in discovery and exploration of any new art medium, as well as helping them to visually express what they're feeling. The child is on a journey in art, and the artist serves as a guide. But being a successful guide asks that the artists understand their own personal journeys with art, as well as recognize the importance of art for expression and healing. My own journey, finding paper cutting in my late 20s after struggling with other art mediums. My journey was finding paper cutting in my late 20s after struggling with other art mediums. I was able to give shape and image to feelings that felt so large and undefined internally, and that was transformative. When I work with the young artists through Kids&Art, I approach with openness and try to perceive where the child is at, aware that any medium might be an entry into exploration and expression for this child. At the end of this conversation, we hope you have a better understanding of these artists' personal journeys with art through discussion of their specific works. Each artist has a unique relationship with art, and I'm looking forward to hearing about our panelists' journeys. Today, we have an incredibly talented panel of Kids&Art artists speaking about their creative journeys and about the themed artwork that they have made specifically for this virtual summit on art, health, and innovation, or AHI. Before we dive into the panel introductions, let's see who's here. You'll see a chat window where you can engage with us, but for now, let me ask you a question. With a quick response and thumbs up in the chat window, do you use art in your everyday life, even if it's doodling on the back of a receipt, or are you yourself an artist? Thanks, Nish. Thanks, Patty. It looks like Justine, Jade, and Andre all use art in their everyday life. Well, thank you, everyone. To give you an idea of what to expect, here's the format for the rest of the talk. I'll introduce each of the panelists, and then I'll have a conversation with each artist individually. But I encourage the other artists to chime in. In the second part of the session, we'll open up for questions from you, the audience, and we're very excited to answer your questions about our work, our process, or artistic journeys. Feel free to post the questions in the Ask a Question button at the bottom, and we'll come back to them at the end. Sound good? All right. Great. Now I'll introduce you to our wonderful panel. Peng-Peng Wang is an art conservator at the Oakland Museum of California. Her specialty is paper and photographs. Peng-Peng also invests her creative energy in printmaking, drawing, and artist books, mural projects, and more recently in Ikebana, which is the art of Japanese flower arranging. Cécile Picard is an artist, educator, and designer, originally from Burgundy, France, and now residing in San Francisco. She has worked in computer graphics with PDI DreamWorks and holds degrees in fine arts from the Beaux-Arts in Dijon, France, and Otis Parsons in Los Angeles. She has studied sculpture, painting, theater set design, and interior design, but is currently focusing on watercolors. Ginger Slonaker is an artist and art teacher. After growing up in Washington, D.C. and spending several years in the Netherlands, she now lives in the Bay Area. Ginger holds a BFA and MFA in illustration from the University of Arizona, has been in exhibitions throughout the United States and Europe, and currently spends most of her time painting and teaching art to children. Okay, we'll hear from all three of these accomplished artists, and we're going to start with you, Peng-Peng, and the role art has played in your life. So, Peng-Peng, we're talking about the importance of art in our lives and our journeys as a tool of growth and often healing. Can you tell us a bit about your journey in art and what was your personal relationship with art as a child?
Hi, everyone. I'm Peng-Peng Wang. Art has been always a very big part of my life. I started going to Sunday watercolor class since I was 4 years old. However, having a career in art has never been encouraged in Taiwan, where I grew up. So I have never received any formal art education. I was later trained as an engineer and got my master's degree in material science. But throughout the 6 years I was in engineering school, art was still pretty much present in my life. I was doing a lot of theater work, producing plays and musicals, performing in local community centers, and even on the street. At the end, I couldn't imagine myself spending my whole life as an engineer. So I started exploring the possibility in art conservation.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. I mean, it sounds like just in, doing the street performing and things like that, that just you needed to have an outcome that was outside of the engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now you have your own art practice as well as working as an art conservator in paper and photographs. Are those two different worlds to you as far as making your own art and conserving the art of other artists? Or do you view the process of conserving art as an art form on its own? Oh, did she freeze? Maybe she did. No, that's okay. Once Peng-Peng comes back on, we'll share, hopefully she can share, I'll share some photographs and she can talk a little bit about what art conservation entails, especially, through paper and photographs. I guess in the meantime, Ginger, you're the only one that's on. So I guess we'll just go down to you, huh? Let's see. Let me see here. Okay, well, I guess we'll just start with the same questions that we started with Cécile and Peng-Peng as well. But so can you tell us a little bit about your journey with art and what was your personal relationship with art as a child?
So I was so lucky and so supported. Oh, there she is. Do you want to continue with me? Or there everybody is.
Come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to the plan.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Let me pick up with Peng-Peng. So, Peng-Peng, before we got disconnected, I was wondering or wanting to hear more about the practice of art conservation, and knowing that you have sort of your own art practice as well as working to conserve other people's arts, do you view them as two different worlds, or do you view conserving art as sort of its own art form?
It's actually two different roles. Sorry, I can't. I probably need to switch. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's better. Yeah, it's two different roles, and when I am a art conservator, I'm acting more like a doctor for artifacts. So I'm trying to see art in a very different perspective, understand their materials, the technique, and how it's made. And when I'm doing my own art, I try to not let part of my brain dominate myself. I want to be liberated and not to worry about the afterlife of the pieces I created. So it's very two different perspectives.
Yeah, and I have, let's see, I'll bring up some photos of you doing some work conserving, and that idea of it being a doctor, like I could see with the white gloves and the tweezers. Can you speak a little bit to what is happening, I guess, in these photos on the left and right?
Yeah, Oakland Museum has a huge collection. The collection contains 2 million objects. And so I have to deal with a huge variety of materials. I often have to collaborate with curators, designers, and art handlers. And for such a big collection, we want to focus on preventative care. That means trying to do anything to provide proper storage and display to reduce the risk of damage. But unfortunately, there are still times the art need to come to the conservation lab for treatment. You can see here they are pretty
Oh.
Looks like we may have lost her again.
Yeah, looks like.
Okay. Okay, maybe we'll just give it one moment to reconnect. But I guess while we're waiting, I think, for me, paper cutting is a very focused and sort of detailed work, and I would say is not like it's like art conservation, but sometimes I do feel like I'm a doctor because I use a blade and a scalpel. Ginger or Cécile, in your guys' art practices, are there any aspects that are very detail oriented like this, or does it tend to be more free, through painting and things like that?
In my art practice, it's not detail oriented, except at the end when I get closer and closer and focus on the tiny things I want to put in for color, like, oh, it needs a spot of red over here. But that's as far as it goes with being exact.
Yeah.
Hi, you're back.
Hi. Sorry,
Okay.
I apologize.
Let me share the screen again. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, so you can see a lot of time I have to focus on very little details. These are the tiers I have to work on. And on the right-hand side, you can see the conservation lab setting. we usually have to deal with a lot of chemicals and solvents. So that's why you see those elephant trunk, those can remove the solvent and to provide a safe working space. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so, yeah, I can't, that detailed work is so amazing.
Yeah.
On the left. Now, so have you found any other creative outlets during shelter in place? And have you found making art to be an important tool through, getting through this difficult and very isolating time?
Yes. During this work from home time, I rediscovered the joy of doing ikebana. Flowers have been for centuries used to express love and sympathy. Many people, including some of my friends and family, are experiencing a difficult time, not being able to be with them in person. My daily ikebana post on Instagram serves as a way of saying, I'm thinking of you. I hope you are feeling better today. Yeah. And ikebana, it's a Japanese art of flower arrangement. It originated in China as floral offerings in temple, but the art form is elevated and refined in Japan. Through the practice, I reconnect with my Asian root and renew my appreciation of Eastern aesthetics. Ikebana has three elements: plants, vessels, and space. The art form is to achieve the balance of these three elements. I see each arrangement as a meditation on nature and space. A typical ikebana has graceful lines and very often a symmetrical composition using very minimum materials. And on the right-hand side, you see the ikebana egg. And ikebana egg installation is an extension of my project. As I mentioned, vessels is one of the important components. Besides using ceramics and glass vases, I started experimenting with non-traditional materials. Anything that holds water can become a vessel. I'm especially fascinated by the form of eggs. They convey the feeling of hope, healing, and caring. Using eggshells as vessel, the arrangement becomes portable, and it just opens up many different possibilities. I install this miniature ikebana in my neighborhood and in my friends' backyards or places I visit. By bringing ikebana into outdoor landscape, it sort of create a new conversation between the arrangement and its surrounding.
Yeah, I remember when you first sent me the photos of the ikebana and eggshell, I was just like arrested in a way because there is something so delicate about both flowers and eggshells, but then to put them in kind of outdoor settings and lost my earpiece to put them in outdoor settings and such. Yeah, there's something very arresting about just seeing that. And Ginger and Cécile, I encourage you to chime in if you have any thoughts along the way as we're talking.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
So the eggs is a kind of a tradition to be used as a vessel in ikebana.
Oh, not at all.
Not at all. It is your
yeah.
Okay.
It's just my experiment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's kind of my discover. One day I told myself I shouldn't be restricted to the traditional ways of doing ikebana. I can start thinking, instead of thinking of out of box, this way, in this case, is thinking out of base. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I often just leave the arrangement on site, and they can be found or not found. Anyway, they serve as a surprise for people. And I think at this moment, we can all use a little tiny dose of uncomplicated joy in our life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So Peng-Peng, for this Summit on Art, Health, and Innovation, you created an AHI-themed Ikebana work. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Yes. This piece I created for AHI Summit, I included AHI made of paper and wire, and it's inspired by traditional Japanese fish-shaped windsock. And those windsock are usually pretty large scale, and they are usually flown throughout Japan on Children's Day. These are in honor of all children for a better future, a healthy and strong growing up. So it has something to do with kids and also with health. So I think it's appropriate for the summit. And I try to include it in the Ikebana. And actually, oh, you have the video here, yes. So it kind of flowing with the wing. And it kind of gives another dimension to the usually very static arrangement.
I first met you as a book artist, and I see precision in everything that you do. And so I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about your journey from book artist and to Ikebana.
Yes. I think as a book artist, I always like to work with my hands. That's for sure. And making artist books, there's this part of the craftsmanship involved, and I really, really enjoy. But ever since I become a full-time conservator, I think outside of my work, I try to involve in different kind of media. And for example, this Ikebana, yesterday I was just thinking about the relationship between Ikebana and my work. And I discovered that Ikebana is such a liberation for me, because every day, Ikebana, like once I create it, I don't have to worry about its life, because at the end, the Ikebana the materials will go into the compost. And that's the journey. It's very different from the regular art we produce. And for some reason, I find this also a very poetic process, that you witness your creation fade away, but that's part of the process, and I accept it. And I also trying to notice the difference, how each day the Ikebana appear, because the color change, the shape change a little bit, and that is the process, and that's also the beauty of it. Yeah.
Well said. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Peng-Peng, for sharing. Next, we'll talk to Cécile about her artwork and artistic journey. So I'll start with the same questions. Can you tell us a bit about your journey in art, and what was your personal relationship with art as a child?
Oh, after high school, I decided to go towards art. I didn't want to do any math and physics and stuff like that anymore. And so I went to art school, and that's where it started, with sculpture and painting. And then the journey is I like to wear. There's a lot of things going on. My granddaughter just came in. Okay, I try to focus. Yeah, I like to wear many different hats, and I am interested in many things. And usually my journey goes with people I meet and encounters. So I met Peng-Peng and I met Florence, and we started to do some interior design together. I met Joe Reggie in Foutier College, and I started to do a set design for Pascal Couder, who is a good friend of mine and a very good theater director. So I started to do some theater design as well. And after high school, I kept on working mostly sculpture for a long time, and then painting, and work in the computer graphics as well for a while with DreamWorks. And when my kids were little, and then now I am more focused and I have more time to, especially with the confinement, to do some more personal work. And so that's what I'm going to speak about, maybe.
Yeah, that's great. I mean,
with Peng-Peng, we did some project of murals, and we worked on interior design projects. Peng-Peng is a very detailed and very efficient person to work with. It's wonderful. So
yeah, it sounds like there's so much collaboration in kind of your journey, and I think in some ways I relate to that a lot in finding other artists to work with and communities and things like that. Something that is incredibly intriguing to me is sort of your work as a theater set designer and also an interior designer. Yeah, is there, like, what is your personal connection with the sort of idea or act of creating or crafting a space?
Yeah, theater, interior design, you deal with color, you work with shape, forms, and for me, when I was working in interior design with Peng-Peng, we often try to bring some fine art painting, wall painting into the design and those interior design projects. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but I find appealing. The whole thing is appealing, just you have a space is like a white canvas, and you just, put colors and furniture or shapes, and you play with textures. And so there's a link with paintings, and there's a link with sculpture. I mean, it's all connected for me.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. Like when I was thinking about your work, and I can see them in the background, but as far as the sculptures go, sculpture to me is also sort of a way of shaping a material as well. Yeah, that's great.
Clay. I love to work with clay. Clay was the medium I use mostly for quite a long time, and still do.
And then Peng-Peng and Ginger, if you have any observations or questions of Cécile's work, feel free to jump in. You had mentioned kind of focusing on watercolors at the moment. And so I thought maybe we could go through and you can talk about some of your work.
I can answer that question.
There we go. Oh, the bottom is a little bit cut off, but so this first piece is called The Color of Love in Cosmos' Magenta 22. I guess to orient us to the piece, can you tell us about what materials you used here?
Okay. in 2015, I started on a series of work with the egg shape. It kind of relate also what Peng-Peng was talking about, the egg shape, which is a very hopeful, healing, and symbolizes the heart often in my work. And so I start with graphite in this piece, with a large graphite. I must have one close by, but a pen that's delineate my inside and outside. And then this graphite is water soluble. So then I start with, it's a very meditative work, this work. It's like I drop a drop of magenta pigment in, and then I start to play with it. It's also, I move my work a lot, and it's a whole process. The watercolor is not controllable. You don't control it like acrylic or oil. You have to let it go, and you have to go with it, and you have some control, but not that as much. And it's what I like about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it has a very beautiful organic sort of feel to it.
Thank you.
The next work is a piece that you created specifically for this event, titled AHI. There we go. Yeah, can you share a little bit about how you went on creating that? And then in the right, there's a little bit of a more detailed shot where you can see kind of the texture of the piece as well.
Yes, the circle is still there, so it relates to what I'm doing in the other artworks. And I was looking at the time at when Jade called me about this AHI and how to help this fundraising. I was looking at Yayoi, who is a Japanese artist, and she has a piece with a similar composition. And I decided to, to assemble and those, and I decided to use also the symbols of which the fishes were water symbol into a darker circle, which kind of reflect the times. For me, it's we are living a very difficult time, very changing time, hopeful time too, but difficult. So I express that by using darker. I use charcoal on this piece and watercolor and graphite as well, and so it's a kind of a mixed media. I like to feel very free about what I use. Sometimes I use pastel, sometimes I mix things. So
there is like you mentioned, there is sort of a kind of the darker colors, but I like the highlight of kind of the pink around it, but also the yellow is just so bright in contrast too, and that kind of speaks a little bit to that feeling of maybe hope in darkness as well.
Yes, magenta as a special meanings symbol for me. It's symbol. Magenta is a symbol for me of love, of pure love. And I made a series of work the name is the color of love in the cosmos is magenta. So I have a whole series on the theme, this theme. So I like to use it. Yeah. Because when you use magenta, it goes from this kind of very dark, bloody kind of color to a very pink and hopeful and joyous color too.
Yeah.
So he has a very good range.
Yeah. Speaking of magenta, this next piece that you have also just is also very striking. And I noticed there's magenta in kind of all the three pieces that we're talking about today.
Yes.
And you speak a lot about the work being very meditative. And this one for me feels very, very meditative. And can you share a little bit about maybe where this piece came from or what the phrase in it is? Is it the same phrase? Is it more of like a paragraph or poem?
I call it the mind versus the heart, and this golden circle represent the heart, and the mind is spreading and radiating around. And no, what I'm writing is a precise text that I found. Somebody called Alice Seigneur wrote this text about, let me see, about the art versus the mind. And so it's definitely inspired from that. And when I do it, I meditate on that. For example, the minds believe, so it's written somewhere around, and the heart knows. The mind fears scarcity, but the heart sees abundance. The mind has questions, the heart has answers. The mind thinks, the heart feels. The mind buzzes, the heart sings. So all this is so it's a definite text that I write with the qualities of the heart and the qualities of the mind.
I love that. I love how both are connected.
Both
the mind and the heart. And just it being visually kind of represented in the shape of a circle or a complete.
Since about 10 years, I am in a spiritual journey, so it's part of this spiritual journey of mind.
Thank you for sharing about your
Welcome.
work and what it means, and also your journey, part of your spiritual journey.
Thank you, Bianca.
Yeah. And Ginger, let me stop sharing here. There you are.
Yes.
So Ginger, let's start with the same questions that I asked the other two artists. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey in art and what was your personal relationship with art as a child?
I was very lucky in that I was kind of curated to be an artist. My mother is an art historian. She was a curator at the Smithsonian. And being the youngest of three children, it was my way to spend time with her. So I went to the museums with her. My two older siblings didn't connect with art the way I did, but it was definitely to use my voice and be heard in my family. Going to art school and majoring in art in undergraduate and graduate school. And then I started off in textile design. And then in the 1980s, I decided I wanted to make textile design wasn't as well received. So I switched over to graphic design and illustration, and then went into advertising and art direction, and then stopped for my graduate degree in computer animation. And then kind of had a realization breakdown that I really did not want to decide what I was going to be creating or directed or not be able to feel it within the computer. So I went into painting and illustration because I really like the relationships between what I'm doing and what I'm touching and what I'm feeling. So, yeah.
So great. Yeah, it's so wonderful to hear that as a child you were sort of fostered to create in a way as well. And
I've always had a studio. I can never. We had our whole basement was a studio for the three kids. So I think it was their way so they could stay asleep longer on the weekend. Go down there and do something.
Cool. And then as an art teacher now, it's like, I'm sure you felt the impacts of it, of being able to do art as a kid. Like, what do you see in your kind of experience, and what impact does art have on the kids that you teach? Can you share a story with us?
I wake up every day with thinking about another way to express to them how important art is in their whole life and in everything that they do. And but if I guess today's word is just to have the confidence and the backing in yourself for yourself to show up and do it. And I fight against words like perfect, and because there's no perfect unless you yourself feel it. And one thing I think I've stopped my kids at school saying is, what do you think, or is this good? Because I really believe it's only good if the artist itself and your inner voice says that it's done, or this is the way it's supposed to be. Did I answer your question? I kind of got on a tangent there.
No, I think that's great. I think there's a lot to take away from that, especially the idea of like especially the idea of that asking for the is it right, or like what do you think, and trying to avoid that.
I just believe that if you can listen to what's inside of you, you'll have all the answers. And it will take you on the journey that you were meant to follow.
Yeah, and I find that really shows through your artwork, because it does have such a specific voice and visual style. Were there artists that you were inspired by, or how do you feel like your visual style has evolved over time? I guess you can take either.
Yeah, I really love Marc Chagall because of his dream-like quality of, and that's kind of the way that my inspiration comes to me, not necessarily in sleeping dreams, but in kind of strange combinations of thoughts and putting them down on paper and standing back and seeing what it says. So again, there's no preconceived idea of what I'm doing at the beginning. It's afterwards I realize what my inner voice was trying to say to me. So Marc Chagall is a good one. And but then I also love Francis Bacon, because I love how it's kind of a punch of what he's feeling, kind of regardless of the swirls and the chaos around it, but the emotion comes out. I love Frida Kahlo because she, she's confined to her bed a lot of the times, and she could have thought that what she had to say didn't matter, but what everyone has to say matters, and your experience matters. And she just took what she had and what she knew and what she can do and put it out there. So those are like kind of the art history ones, but like,
I feel like with all three of them too, they do kind of transport you into another world in a way, in a very sort of, intricate world, I guess, when I think of Francis Bacon or Frida Kahlo. And I think your work does a similar thing to me. Like when I look at it, it does feel like its own separate world and separate story. And I thought maybe we could share some and have you talk through it. Okay. Oh, there we go.
So the one on the left, it's on my left, that was done after I had a thyroid biopsy, and I did a series of how I was feeling about those. Actually, I think it was done before. And the colors are just kind of dark and mysterious. I didn't know what I was getting into, but hopeful, like the pink, the magenta, a hopeful love. And lots of my work actually kind of point to the throat, because I think that in this case, it's the thyroid, but and the caged in area is kind of like the needles and the cage and everything. But the throat is an important part of my work because my artwork is my voice. And some other ways I don't get my voice out or my meaning out in other ways, maybe through literature or talking. But I feel like in my artwork, I have the most punch to get out what I'm talking about. So keys come up like I feel like you asked about symbols earlier. So I'm just like wiping that around. Keys are often a part of my work, like the key to saying what you're really meaning and unlocking your voice. And so that's why that particular area of the painting is highlighted.
Yeah.
In the other piece, that's called Homegrown Root Ball, it's again the head's mouth is sewn up because they can't talk. They don't have a voice. But it's about, and also I noticed, I was thinking about, it has the eggs in the background too, just coming around. But it's about, I had just, this actually talks about how things come together. At my home, I was planting these trees and we had to make big holes in it so that the roots would go out and find the water. So there's a hose in the background and there's the roots. But I also just moved into that house and I was thinking about moving in a new place and having my roots be established. And in the bottom, you see like a breakfast and syrup and things like that. So what I realized about myself is I get connected to people through loving things like eating together or having syrup or talking to each other and all the fine comforting things of home. So that's kind of what that's the explanation of the day for this one. As far as what's in that, there's mud. It has a square form out now, but it's a found torn piece of paper. There's lots of see-through tape in that piece, and Scotch tape. And then my go-to with my paintings are, first starts out as a scribble, then I stand back and see what I can find, like a treasure hunt, what I can find in there to see, oh, there's a head. So I go for that. And I always start with the eyes because I think the eyes are a window to your soul and what you're really thinking. But so, and then acrylic and pastel and then fine tuning with colored pencils.
Yeah, you mentioned the part about starting with the eyes, and it actually just made me think about these two pieces here because I think they both have very different kind of gazes and looks. But I don't know if you maybe want to speak to the yellow-haired girl, and then we could go to Indelible after that.
Oh, okay, great. So the yellow-haired girl, the piece on the left with the birds, was I was connected to a little girl who had cancer, and that's one of the reasons I became connected to Kids&Art. And some feelings here are, well, the reason why it's called Little Haired Girl is because this family took Charlie Brown's cartoon and had the whole school watch it. And it's about a little girl who had yellow hair. And so the yellowness, the brightness is kind of fading away from her, but there's the natural elements of the pomegranate that gives healing and love. And the birds are her family, with the male bird being on the far left with protection and pride, and the mother with concern, and the little kids with curiosity and kind of boredom, and being in the hospital room with her. So she has her loving doll. She's taking her medicines, her Western medicines, on a tray. But although how brutal that is to hear, I just wanted to include this particular piece because it was one of the ways I connected with Kids&Art. Yeah. So we're skipping to another piece, or to Indelible? Okay.
we'll talk about Indelible because this is one that is included in our art fundraiser. And I wanted to be mindful of time for questions and answers because it looks like we have a few questions there. But I did want you to speak to, you know, basically a little bit about this work and if there was a connection to it that led you to including it in the art auction.
Yes, definitely. So this piece, I have just like a little blurb I'm going to read about it that's included with it. It says, indelible. With attention, each flame leaves a permanent imprint. So this is about how taking the time and realizing that everybody in your life is, I believe, is there for a reason. And so taking the time, no matter how short, to listen and spend time with someone. So everyone has a voice and a song to sing. So I'll just point out some, like the bird is there singing a song. And then there's like little candles or matches or flames on the guy's shoulder. And each one means something and should be examined. Everyone you've met should be examined and not just wiped away. And that saying of each day lasts forever, but the years go by fast is kind of what this is about also. So there's elements of time in there, from the snail going by slow, and the snail in the guy's pocket, and a watch in the forefront in the girl's hand, and leaves rustling fall after fall, marking of time. So yeah, so that's what that one's about.
That's wonderful. Thanks. It was really incredible to hear about how art permeates your lives differently, but in equally impactful ways, through the professions that you've chosen, but also in the exploration and drive to create in so many areas of your lives, from Peng-Peng's rediscovery of Ikebana during Shelter in Place, to Cécile's meditative works and creating internal spaciousness, to Ginger's paintings that are just brimming with emotionality and story and details. I'm truly in awe. We only have a few minutes, and the Q&A was not as long as I think intended, but we'll see if we can answer one or two questions before we wrap up. Let's see, the first question, Bianca and Peng-Peng, how did you overcome the fear of transitioning from creating art in your spare time to pursuing art as a full career? Peng-Peng, do you want to speak to that?
Cannot hear. You are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was really a long journey. And as I say, I was trained as an engineer, but I realized art is still what I want to pursue. So when I moved to the States, I changed my major to museum studies. And that it's a huge change for me, because not just changing the major, but also changing the place I live and living what I know behind. So it was really not easy. But like I say, listen to yourself, and you know best what you really want. And doing what you have passion for is worth really everything. And just like going to work is not really a work for me. It's just another discovery. So yeah, listen to yourself.
Great. I think for me, I'll make it short and just say that I don't love change, and so I'm still transitioning, and it's been 8 years, and I will always make the choice to keep going towards art. Let's see. First, Cécile, what was the process of stage design like? Did you collaborate with directors and others to come to an idea for a set? I think you spoke to that a little bit before.
Yes, it's like many things, it's a collaboration. The art director just you start with from the words, so you have to read the script, and then you talk with the director, and it's a collaboration. You talk about ideas, your ideas for the set, and then you come up with a drawing. Start with a drawing, and then you elaborate, and so it's a collaborative process. It's a very fun place to be, theater, because it's you can be very creative. It's a very creative place. You don't make much money, but it's very creative.
Okay, well, great. With that, I'm going to close the session. I'd like to thank Peng-Peng Wang, Ginger Slonaker, and Cécile Picard for their openness in sharing their art, personal insights, and artistic journeys with us. And thank you to the audience for participating. This is the last day of our 4-day virtual summit fundraiser. The next event is Crush and Flow at 2 o'clock, so just right after this. Moving Ideas into Action with Janice Spivak and Bright Catalyst at 2 p.m. That will be in Zoom, so you can see the link in the chat. Our last session today, our closing session, is Wisdom at Work and the Future of Health at 5:30 with Chip Connolly, the strategic advisor for hospitality and leadership at Airbnb and leader of the Modern Elder Academy, in conversation with David Hornick of August Capital and Purvi Shah, the founder of Kids&Art, about the holistic well-being and future of health. And lastly, while you're waiting for the next session, feel free to peruse the art that we have for sale by both some of our kids and also the artists here and other artists that have donated work. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Cécile. We are early. It looks like we have 3 more minutes.